Good evening. Fake news is making news. It's so commonplace now that it was even dubbed as the word of the year for 2017 by the Collins Dictionary, which found that the term's usage had risen by 365% since the 2016 election. So from the White House, where Donald Trump rails against it, to Europe, Russia, and of course India, it's everywhere. So what does this mean for a democracy where information and dialogue are crucial ingredients? This week, the government announced a new set of rules under which journalists found guilty of perpetrating so-called fake news would have their official accreditation revoked. A furious backlash prompted a hasty retraction. But was this an attempt at taming journalists, and is there more to come? Should it be the government's business to determine what is fake news, and punish journalists? And if so, how must it be regulated? And are certain sides of the political spectrum more guilty of employing fake news than others? And since fake news is largely peddled by political warriors, is the government's move a sinister attack on mainstream media? To discuss this and more, we have with us from the BJP, Vaibhav Agarwal, Priyanka Chaturvedi of the Congress, she's a spokesperson of the Congress, Shagrika Ghosh, senior journalist and author, Michael Safi, South Asia correspondent of The Guardian, Raghav Avasthi, advocate and member of the RSS, Apar Gupta, co-founder of the Internet Freedom Foundation, and Vikas Pandey, BJP volunteer and I Support Namo coordinator. And joining us from Germany on Skype, who will be Dhruv Rathi, who's a YouTuber and an activist. Shagrika, I want to start with you. This government says that it's only trying to regulate fake news, which I think we can all agree has become a necessity now. So why not take them at face value?
Sarah, fake news is a problem. It's a moral challenge, it's a technological challenge, it's an ethical challenge, it's an editorial challenge. And all of us who are journalists face this challenge, and we as journalists have to face it. But when the government tries to arrogate to itself the power to determine fake news, that I think is a problem. You know, which is why when the circular was put out, and of course retracted as you pointed out, there was disquiet among journalists and democratically minded citizens, because at the end of the day, you know, governments are propaganda machines. All governments are propaganda machines. So when a government decides what is fake news and what is not fake news, that to me is deeply troubling, because it's not about accreditation, you know, cancelling accreditation or not letting journalists function. It's basically sending a message to journalists saying, listen, we are Big Brother, we are watching you, this is a message to you, crawl before us. It's a way of taming the media. And I think that mindset of taming the media, cracking the whip on the media, making the media bend, making the media, crawl to the political bosses, that is what is troubling. Because at the end of the day, the media is the fourth estate. We have to question the government. We have to question the powers that be. And
Raghav, before she started speaking, you put your finger up. It's like the CBSE question paper. You already know the answer.
But Sarah, I want to
let her finish.
Today, two government ministers have actually circulated a fake news on the death of TN Seshan. So the fact is, at the end of the day, is the government pursuing truth, and is it pursuing true news, or is it only eagerly waiting to denounce journalists? And how does one react to that? Okay. Is it only eagerly waiting to denounce journalists?
Vaibhav, you know, the fact is, it does sound a bit rich for this government to say it's wanting to clean up, fake news from the media, given its own poor record on this issue, right? 2 days before this controversial diktat, you had BJP leaders, you had BJP ministers rushing to support Mahesh Hegde, who was arrested for spreading fake news and, standing up for his side, which is well known to be peddling lies. Right. Okay, so you want us to suddenly believe that now suddenly you want to clean up fake news from the media space?
You know, fake news is more like, is viral. So in medical terms, viral is contagious. So let's look at it from a 20th century perspective for a moment. You know, and these are my opening comments, and of course the narrative in the question remains the same, and I would answer that. But quickly taking us all back a century, let's look at 20th century. Why 20th century was important? Why democracy in 20th century was very successful in the Greek cities? Because what is news? News or what is fake news? How is it made? It's made because there is a marketplace for ideas. Now that marketplace in the ancient Greek, in the 20th century or before, when the media and the press started.
20th century wasn't ancient Greek.
Yeah, for me, 100 years. So, I'm all of 40, so when I look at 20th
History
century,
in India is, you know, the
of course,
lines
this
are
is
grey.
absolutely new India, and for me,
It's
even
whose history?
1920s were ancient.
Okay, but let's get to the point that's relevant
so
to this
there's
debate.
a marketplace of ideas, and then there's a marketplace of gathering, the public agora. Now, when in Greek, and it was successful when the press, used to get ideas in the marketplace, in the public agora. Now, what happened? The marketplace for ideas, there are ideas, and then there is a marketplace again.
No, but I'm confused. Are you now supporting fake news? You're saying it is an idea that
absolutely
is
not.
worth supporting.
So I'll tell
There's a
you.
marketplace for
There's a
ideas. Which
market.
means
So there is a marketplace there, and the ideas got consumed. Now, when 21st century came in, and the press graduated to the legalism of legal journalism, we had those checks and balances in place. We always needed, when the press was there, we needed an editor or someone close to the editor to run a news. When the television came in, we needed the medium of the television, which is the ways and means of production, which is still expensive, to run that news. Today,
Okay.
it's the digital.
okay.
And in the early 21st century, before the digital came in, we have to understand that they were professional journalists who were gatekeeping this news.
Okay, but
Now
this
there are
new
no
amendment
gatekeepers.
that the INB ministry tried to put forward doesn't mention digital
Now,
anywhere, social space. It only talks
it
about
does.
newspapers and broadcasting, which you've already mentioned already have regulators,
So,
right? It's not making sense.
no, but digital space doesn't have a regulation.
But that
But it
wasn't
wasn't
the first
mentioned in
intent
what
of
Shruti
the
Irani
idea.
was
Right,
talking
so now
about.
there's
no
That
websites
is
are
what
now
the
showing
irony is.
Digital is mentioned,
Now-
website is mentioned. In
Correct.
In
So
Shruti
that
Irani
is-
is saying
that
no,
is
it's
a
not.
follow-up.
It's
That is
talking
a
even
follow-up.
advertisements,
Let's look at it.
even advertisements will be regulated and
So-
not given if they are found
Correct.
to be fake news.
So let me complete
That was
my
part of the
narrative.
regulation.
So Sarah,
Yes.
so 21st century, there are no gatekeepers now.
Okay.
There is no professionalism in digital news, which is even questionable whether it's news or not, and how does it impact. Now, if the government is coming up and making a committee, which already has certain regulations to look up to in the form of the press and the media accreditations and so on and so forth, the licensing, the FDI norms are there and so on. And during the debate, we can talk who funds these digital platforms where the fake news gets
Sure. So
originated.
talk about this.
So
there's a
the
committee
government
they've
is
set up.
only trying to get this committee in of the relevant stakeholders on the first instance. And please do not read between the lines. There is no need to read between the lines.
No,
the Home Ministry
but
Secretary
the
is there.
fact is, it's still disingenuous because you've changed the composition of this council, right? You're talking about the committee or the press council, whoever's on it
No,
has
I'm not
been
talking
changed.
about the press council. Press council is a separate discussion.
The
I'm talking about the
accreditation committee.
the
This
committee that
was
will
set up by
monitor the
government.
fake news.
Yeah.
That is
Why
what
should
we
the government
in
set
layman
up a
language.
committee? No government, please.
Of course. So coming back, the justification for the government is very simple. When we set up this committee, we understand now it's the 21st century part 2.
Okay.
We are now on a digital platform. There are no gatekeepers for spreading a viral news.
So
And
you're
the
saying you
government
need
wants
someone to
understand
monitor.
that if you are a digital platform today, you want to talk of news per se.
But
Let's
again,
respect
fake news
Sagarika's
spread most
experience.
on digital platforms, and it didn't mention digital platforms at all. My question
Right.
to you is simple. How is it that this government, why should we believe that this government wants to clean up fake news when you're the ones propagating fake news? Who have you put on the press council? You've reconstituted this press council and you've put Pratap Simha, right? He's one of the first to run to the support of Mr. Hegde.
Yeah, but very surprising. I would be very surprised that why would you ask that? Now the press council,
Yes.
it's within the purview of the sitting government. To
I know, but
manage
it says a lot about
Why
who you
would-
choose
I
to
would-
put
I
on
would-
that
I would love if
committee.
the
You put
journalists-
Meenakshi Lekhi on that committee. She has tweeted fake news about, I think, UNESCO saying
Yes,
that,
but Meenakshi-
that
Meenakshi
no, she
also would have
tweeted,
her own
so she
personal
tweeted
capacity.
fake
Website
news.
that the
She didn't
government
apologize.
is
This is
using
the
to
minister. Once it
monitor
was
fake news.
proved that
She's
it
not
was
a
fake
minister, she's an
news.
MP. So
She's an MP. Thank
Right.
you. When I'm wrong, I will point that out. She
Right.
did not point out that she was wrong. In fact, she was defiant about it.
What
Okay,
about
go
True
ahead.
Picture?
mind,
Raghav,
it's a
go
True
ahead.
Picture, that
course.
website True
I think,
Picture, which is looking after
before
Narendra Modi's
Before
campaign.
we start this discussion, I think it's important to emphasize that somehow I get the impression that if I were to just listen to you, that purveyors of fake news belong to exclusively one ideological persuasion.
I
Now,
didn't
if
say that. If
Sagarika
that's
ma'am is
how you
sitting
feel,
next to me.
if that's
You
how
mean
you feel,
Sagarika ma'am is
that's
sitting
the
next to
definitely
me. She
point out
tweeted
that is the guilt
something
speech.
about
Then I will
semen-filled balloons. Hindu
that was a news,
virility.
that was a
No,
news,
it
that
was
was-
not news.
that
It's
was news.
impossible. There are certain
Okay.
chemical properties that
Did
semen has,
Sagarika apologize or
and
not? Did you?
That was
Did she
the
apologize?
news. That was the
No,
news.
she didn't
that came
apologize.
out.
apologize.
And the
No,
next
there was
point,
a-
the
there
next
was a
deleted it.
No, yeah,
There was a
that's, you
protest
cannot
on
build
that.
cement
No,
inside a
even
balloon.
the
The chemical
fake
news.
news.
I don't know who
I
started
would
finding
like
out
to-
now.
even many media
Okay, one second. Make your point.
Let me just
As
complete my
usual,
point.
he's taking
So
recourse
there
to
are-
personal
I'm not
attacks.
taking recourse to any
And,
personal attacks. This is
Okay,
in
one
relation to
second.
your- it's not a
Shagrika,
personal attack.
make your
The
point,
second- the
please.
second
No
point is
personal
this.
attacks. Stick to the
second
debate.
point is this. There is a fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression which is guaranteed under Article 19(1)(a), and there are reasonable restrictions that can be imposed upon it under Article 19(2). Having said that, the last time I checked, there is no Supreme Court judgment which said that there is a fundamental right to accreditation. Accreditation is access. It's a
So you
privilege.
hold that,
It
you
has to
hold
be
that
earned.
as a
It has to
carrot
be
and
earned.
stick, you can
And
hold
if
that
there
back.
is somebody
The
like
two
Sagarika
press
ma'am who's
bodies-
caught being a
the
pavera
two
of
No,
press
I just
bodies-
have one
I think
question.
there is
PCI
absolutely
and
no reason for them to have accreditation.
no powers of
And
accreditation.
this is
PCI
essentially a
and
peer
NBSA
review
have no
mechanism. The
powers
Press
of
Council of India
accreditation.
and the News Broadcasters Association have to be
No,
have
he's
to
talking
decide
rubbish.
whether
That
accreditation
the
is to
PCI and
continue or not.
NBSA have
And
no
she has
powers
yet,
of
she hasn't
accreditation.
apologized as
So
yet
the
for being a
fact
purveyor
is-
of fake news.
Oh.
That's the point. This is the
No,
reason
have
why-
a
Okay,
minister
one second. I want to. Okay, I don't want to.
Have a minister apologize.
Has
should
Smriti
apologize.
Irani
You should
apologized
apologize
when
for the
the
fake
TN
news
station
about
has
the moon.
died?
I don't
Has
wanna-
Smriti Irani
You know,
apologized for
I
the
don't want to. Can we not make this personal? It's not about Shagrika's tweet and your tweet.
No,
Please
I was
take that up
making a
on
larger
Twitter.
point. I was
Just
making
make
a
that,
larger
take
point.
that up on
The fact
Twitter. And
is
Shagrika is not a minister and she's not an
I'm not a
MP.
BJP
She is a
minister, your
journalist and she will be
minister
is
judged.
about
She will be
accreditation of
judged
journalists.
on her
That is
record.
wrong.
Hold on one
That is
second.
wrong.
One second. It's not. I want to move across. I want to go across to Vikas.
Because
Hold on one
NBSA and
second.
PCI don't have powers of accreditation. You'll
I'll
have
come
to
to you
change the
next.
Parliamentary Act. You'll have to go back to Parliament. You see, if you're saying that the PCI and the NBSA, which are the watchdog bodies for print and television, PCI for print, NBSA for television,
Correct.
if you're saying that they're going to cancel accreditation, they cannot do that legally.
They don't have
the
the teeth for it
PCI
even.
is constituted through an act of Parliament. You have to go back to Parliament. You have to take it through the House. So you can't
But
on
if
your
the
own
act- if
decide.
the Act provides
you
for
can't.
rule-making powers, I'm
No,
sure
it
it
does
can be
not.
done.
It
We
does
have
not.
to
You
go
have
back
to
to
go back
Henry
to
Delhi laws.
Parliament.
There is a
The
long list
question
of
is why
judgments about
put in,
delegation
why
legislation.
try and put in
I'm
such an
not
order
sure
into
whether
place?
Sagarika
Okay,
ma'am
hold
has gone
on.
through all of
Okay,
those
I want to go.
Take away
I am pretty sure that if there is an
The
enabling
point is
provision,
why put in such an order that would take away the threaten to take away the
Absolutely, you
accreditation, and
cannot
who is
take
going to
away
decide
as
what
far
is
as
fake news?
accreditation is
Who is going to
concerned,
sit on this
it's a privilege,
committee?
it's not a right.
Who is going to
That's
decide
the
what is
point
right
I'm
or
trying
wrong?
to
Hold
make.
on one second. Can we get others in?
No,
Can we
you
get
don't
others
go to
in?
Parliament.
Let's just go across. So, you know, you mentioned, Rahul mentioned a crucial point. He's claiming that we are saying, I don't know who is saying, it wasn't me, that the BJP is the only one to blame. I don't think any, hold on, just hear my question. I don't think any party is, you know, holier than thou when it comes to spreading fake news. But the fact is, the government that stands to gain the most and in an election year is the BJP. And the examples that have come up so far are examples that have been of BJP ministers and
let me tell you,
MPs.
you have already taken 3-4 times the name of Mahesh Hegde. Okay, he has been arrested for 15 days or so. He has got 3 FIRs.
And out on bail.
Yeah, he has got 3 FIRs against him. He was released on bail yesterday and then again arrested within half an hour as if he is a terrorist. Similar tweet was done by Sagarika, no personal attacks, but I will have to point out, she said, mob hunting and killing Muslims across India. It was copied and retweeted by hundreds and thousands of people.
Can we just clarify this? Did
No.
you not delete this? This
Delete?
tweet?
He could have also deleted.
I
He
don't,
could have also
no, I don't even
apologized.
want
Why
to
is he
go.
arrested?
I don't
Why
even
is he
want to
not-
go into what that tweet
Why is he not
was.
arrested?
This is
Which
about the
tweet is
Muslims
it?
No, how can
under
you compare
attack.
two
You
things?
deleted it.
How can you compare two things?
Can we
He
not
has
make
tweeted
this about
something wrong
Shagrika's tweet?
across
This is about the attack on
No, one
Muslims.
second.
Yeah.
Why are you comparing
One
two
second,
things?
please, there's a difference. There is a difference. There is a difference.
How can you say
Hello,
no?
no,
He has
This is
given a
about
fake
me
news.
You have to
or is it
allow
about the
someone to
government?
No,
speak.
she's
I mean,
Can we not make it about
My
Shagrika?
point
One
is-
second.
my
One
point is
second.
this.
Can we not? Nobody can understand the thing.
The left-wing media is totally threatened by
Can we-
social media.
No, that's not
Okay,
true.
and because of the and
Okay,
you
one
can-
second. We have all
apart
these
from-
youth
I
over
know you have
here.
taken
We have
so many-
youth over here. Do we hold our MPs? Do we hold our MLAs? Do we hold our ministers?
Why is
to
Mahesh
a
Hegde
higher
in jail
accord than
while
we
she's
do over
sitting here
journalists?
for similar kind of tweet?
Who's on
Can you-
Twitter?
can you
Many of
explain?
these kids aren't
I'm
on
really
Twitter.
So sorry, that is
No.
absolutely out of the question. That is
Because
out of
please, Shagrika, 1 second. This is not about Shagrika. I'm sorry. How many of you care whether a journalist has apologized or not, or do you care more if the government has apologized? Do you care what the government should do? Nobody is listening to you, Vikas. Please listen to what. Let's listen to what the audience is saying over here. The audience is saying that they do not care whether Shagrika, what she has said on Twitter, she's a journalist. They have not voted for Shagrika at all. They do not care about Shagrika. Can we not make this about Shagrika? Answer the question. Answer the question. If you do not want to answer the question, all right, can we just reduce all their mics? Go ahead. Go ahead, Shagrika, hold on.
Yes,
we want to go to people who would like to say something that everyone can hear. The audience is not interested in Shagrika's tweets and your attacks on Shagrika. Please take this off this platform and take it on Twitter. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So this does not become a platform for you to attack fake news. Let's not
please go ahead. 1 second.
attack people on the platform.
1 second. Can we please? The audience here, the youth is not interested in Shagrika's tweets. Many of them are not on Twitter. They don't care. They haven't heard of these tweets.
No, we are not
Please
showing
hold
a mirror.
on.
I think we're sitting in front of young voices and they're seeing us misbehave in the most way in which any public conversation shouldn't be taken forward. So the first thing, how do you define fake news? Because everyone seems to be so sure what it is, but it's not. It's not, and all of us feel we know fake news instinctively because it sounds very neat. It's like one of those things, hey, I don't agree with you, fake news. There's a lot of research which has gone into it, and there's no definitional rigor to even place it within a legal definition by itself. So even right now, a lot of work is going on. For instance, there's first draft, which is the center at the Shorstein Center of Public Government at Harvard. And it says that we've done a study of academic literature over past 15 years, and it's been used in 34 different ways. So if these people who do their PhDs, and you guys know now, PhDs take a long time, right? So, if they can't agree on what fake news means, there won't be any agreement here. The second point I want to make, the circular did not define fake news, and this should give us a sense that, well, the government would have had the ability to pick and choose through nominees in the PCI or the NBA or whichever mechanism it devises if the definition is not fixed.
Correct.
And this is not a problem with the present government. This is what is called in law as culpable legislation. You try to do one thing when you... No, please. I know you're a lawyer, you're a brilliant lawyer. Just don't interrupt me. I won't interrupt you. Okay? Let me continue. So the thing is, even during Indira Gandhi's time, she restricted the number of advertisement and pages newspapers could publish. And the Supreme Court struck it down. It said, you're indirectly trying to censor and neuter the press. Now, even a PIB release by itself, which would have been testing the waters, may not be an act of legislation, because that would have been the proper course to do. Absolutely. But some people do not believe in Parliament.
Okay, but I want to go across to what Weber, hold on 1 second. Let's just get Weber. What Weber points out, he says in the beginning there is a marketplace for this news.
Yes.
Do we in the end have nobody to blame but ourselves? We're educated on Twitter, I'm assuming many. And we don't question these fake news. I mean, for example...
Not at all. I would say that they are...
We don't have the rigor. We don't have rationalism anymore.
Because this reading is based off a very simplistic reading of media history. If you look at Walter Lippmann's public opinion, where he coined stereotype, he criticizes the press. The press has never been such a responsible actor as we all presume. It makes mistakes. Lies serve functions in personal conversations. We say to prevent embarrassment, to safeguard our privacy. Lies in public settings with journalists are inevitable in societies which secrecy prevails. For instance, it is a natural outgrowth when a journalist does not have access to full information of government. You file a RTI, you don't get information.
Absolutely.
And
I think this is not just
One
about
second,
Twitter.
Shagrika.
It's not about Twitter.
It's
not at all about Twitter.
And we are
Access to
thinking in a sense, we are in a point of crisis. It's never been worse. Well, it will get better, but looking at the law as a blunt strategy is the wrong way out. You need to look at a larger toolkit, civic education, for instance, beyond the secondary school, because today all of us are speakers, and to bring in a fake news law which would, disproportionately apply, let's say, against established media houses would only prevent further fact-checking, sources, etc., and establishment.
Is
So
it
all of us-
disingenuous? Is it actually
so
trying to
all of
solve
us-
the problem
I'm
at the
sure-
root? But hold on, let's get Priyanka in. Shangrika, one second, let's
Has
get
to be
Priyanka in.
tackled
The
across
fact is,
the
he did
board.
point out that this is not the first time it's happened. Somebody else has pointed out that all governments try propaganda. The Congress has tried this in the past too, right? 66A, whether it was 1988 with Rajiv Gandhi, I'm getting a sense of deja vu with that. So it's not the first time that this government is doing
There's
this.
also a sense of, understanding that if someone has done this before and we've paid a price for it, the Congress has paid a price for, let's say, the emergency that is spoken about by most of the people here as a mechanism to defend what is happening right now. So we've paid a price for it. We would hope that perhaps people and governments learn from those mistakes and ensure that freedom of expression, freedom of speech is not thwarted. However, when one talks about the entire Twitter war or what is being spread as fake news, you must also understand that when you talk about a Mahesh Hegde being treated as a terrorist, that's absolutely incorrect statement to make. When you deliberately keep pushing news stories regularly every day, every single day, where you're trying to disrupt the communal harmony in the country, when you're trying to pit communities against each other, that is when it comes under the purview of creating a problem in the society. And this is not the first time. This is freedom of speech. No, just because there is a market.
The FIRs are only for one
but
reason.
if it is impacting, I'm sorry, if it is impacting, people have been arrested. People have been arrested for saying nasty things about Prime Minister Modi. So please do not give me these sermons here. Don't give me these sermons. Yogi Adityanath gets people arrested.
The law was amended
Gets arrested
by the UPA itself.
So
that any crime which does not attract imprisonment more than 7 years, the defendant may not
when
be
it goes
arrested.
back, the question
For
is,
15 days,
does
there is
this
a defendant
government
arrested.
look insincere? Does it look like a hypocrite if they're saying they're trying to crack down on fake news
They're
when
not
you're
trying
the
to crack
ones
down on fake
actually
news.
like
we have to
spreading it?
understand, okay, for a moment.
When you're coming to the
for a
aid
moment,
of someone,
for a moment,
the Prime Minister can set an example himself. Can't he?
The Prime Minister set an
and
example,
foremost,
he
should
corrected course.
unfriend or
and
detweet
what
he
or
about-
corrected course by
unfollow
retracting
this
the order.
fake news
Where is the
Mahesh
problem?
Hegde.
from official
When you
ministers.
retract the course and correct it, we still want to say the Prime Minister is not setting an example. We have to see that
He
in the right
retracted
light.
the course
Now
and
you
you
see-
just said there's a marketplace for it. You
Correct.
seem to
So there is a
correct him.
marketplace
You
for
seem to
this.
think that
So-
Prime Minister
so-
was wrong
so I'll tell you,
by
I am
retracting
trying-
this.
When there is a marketplace, when I bring out the concept of the marketplace, and you would really appreciate it after that when you look in the deep research on this that has been done by the Columbia School of Journalism, and Harvard together. Now, when you look at the marketplace, the millennials are that's correct. Sorry for the slip of tongue, you. So are the right people who consume it. Look at what we have here,
No, what we have right
the
now. if I may
problem
say
is that
something,
we do
Vaibhav,
not have gatekeepers.
What we have
we
right
need to
now
go back
to
to
defend
that's where we
fake
need to
news,
understand.
all the senior ministers tweet out a story from the
No,
same
this is
website,
not political,
which is
and
debunking.
you
No,
understand.
please understand. The
If-
concept of fake news as per the ministers in power right now.
No,
What they tweet out a story
I don't think
which
that's
debunks
justified.
Indian
I don't
Express
think we can
story.
say it's not political. This is an
correct,
election year.
this is not
Everything is
political.
political.
This is
Everyone
absolutely
stands to
political.
gain.
Understand.
Okay,
Absolutely
can
political.
we get Michael
Those
in?
in
I just want to get
power
Michael
are
in
sharing a
the
news story and debunking some fake news stories is absolutely incorrect.
Actually, Dhruv is waiting. Dhruv, can you hear me?
Sarah, fake news is
So
not
why?
fake news,
We're
it's
trying to check
deliberately
ourselves.
false.
Okay,
Deliberately
Dhruv,
false.
so see, there are different definitions of whether Mahesh Hegde on this panel, there are different definitions about whether Mahesh Hegde was right or wrong. Is that not just the basic problem here? Would this, had it gone through what Smriti Irani was intending, announcing, would that not have opened up journalists to be picked up at willy-nilly at the behest of someone in power?
And I have a question.
Yes, I definitely, as the advocate here pointed out, we don't really have a proper definition of fake news. Fake news can be, we have hoaxes, we have satires, we have opinions, and there's no clear boundaries between what is what. So if the government brought out a law, we would not know what exactly is fake news and what they would pick out and call it fake news and accredit the journalists. So I think this government restriction cannot work at all. Government should not be allowed to regulate the freedom of speech here. But what should be done here is to form a committee, which government tried to do, but the committee should be independent and it should consist of people from all spectrums of ideologies. Preferably, which I think it should be people from every recognized political party should be in a committee. who can give this job to a fact checker like SM Hoaxslayer, for example, because there are some fact checkers which you say are left leaning, there are some which are right leaning. We can pick out some which are centrist leaning, like SM Hoaxslayer, for example. The government can give the job of fact checking to that agency, and that fact checking agency can then be verified by this committee, which consists of people from all political parties. I think that is a system which I thought of and which can possibly work to prevent this fake news to some extent.
The way to combat
but
fake
one
news
second, let's
is
just
not
get,
to
I want to
debate.
get Michael in first.
Let the
Michael, the
debate
fact is it's
grow.
not just in India, right? This is happening the world over. In fact, just yesterday the headlines were that Homeland Security in the US is now creating a database of journalists and so-called media influencers. So we're not alone.
In fact, Guardian's written on it extensively.
We have
and I'm
indeed.
referring to the same Columbia School of Journalism that Guardian's worked on.
Sure. I think the issue here is that we're conflating two definitions of fake news. There's actual fake news, which is news that is information that is knowingly false and pumped out on social media and that goes viral.
Right.
And the person who creates it knows it's not true, but it's there to achieve some sort of political end.
Right.
So that's
It is
actual
political.
fake
Let's get
news.
that clear.
But then there's a second definition of fake news here, which is the Donald Trump definition, the one that he appropriated, which means news he does not like. It's that simple.
That's the government definition.
But now my concern is that my concern is the BJP is, and that any government, when they claim to try to regulate fake news, my worry is they're not trying to regulate actual fake news. They're trying to regulate the Trumpian definition of fake news, which is news they do not like.
And journalists they don't like.
Respond.
No, so, the problem is that what Michael has is a journalistic definition of fake news. What I'm talking about is a technical definition of fake news.
No, respond to what Michael is saying. Let's
I've just responded.
Michael is saying the worry here is that this government is doing exactly what the Trump government is going to do. You are not interested in cracking down on fake news, intentionally fake news. You're interested in cracking down on news that is criticizes the government. That is what he please respond to that. Nothing else.
It's impossible.
Anti-government news
that
is
website
fake
the true
news,
picture?
according to them.
Because nothing that's been listed on that website, the true picture, is actual fake news. It's all Trumpian fake news.
Yes.
Now that's been
But we are
tweeted by
not even
BJP
associated
ministers.
with true picture.
So if
I mean,
that's what they
Well,
think fake
13
news
of your
is,
ministers came
Yeah,
out in
so
support of
they
it.
could
concerned
be
that they don't
13 of your
associations.
ministers came out in
They could
support
be
of it
personal associations,
And
but
tweeted
there's
it
their
at the same
and
association.
supported it.
If today you run a portal, if for example scroll.in talks of giving news which is right, a lot of us go to scroll.in. Scroll.in does not even come in the norms of news. For example, postcard news, just because you have a domain
But the
name.
circular that was
one moment.
was
one
not
moment.
on digital.
again.
You're
Conflating postcard
conflating
news.
again. Michael, respond to Michael's question.
This is the Guardian's viewpoint or Michael's viewpoint. That has to be clarified. This government is
So
absolutely
now it's a
trying to crack.
foreign
It's
publication.
not
and
business
so-
to regulate
This
news.
government
It's as simple as that.
is
It's
not
as
the
simple as
government's
that.
business
which
to regulate
impacts
news.
the public interest at a larger segment.
So news and
larger
demonetization that
audience-
criticizes
Now you
demonetization
understand
impacts the public,
what
so
I'm
you
getting
can't
at.
cover
They
it.
come
What
out
I'm
in
getting
support
at
of postcard news.
Why did I bring it?
I'm asking him a question, he's not answering.
No, I'm absolutely asking.
Answer the
And why did
question.
Why did I bring up this the millennials issue? I got it right this time. Is because Matrabhasha Hindi hai bhai. So
But
I
accented
brought
Hindi
it up. Yeah, totally. So I brought it up because I next want us all to talk about automation of this news. So today, you and I,
But please
most
answer his
millennials
question.
say,
Let me answer the
if there is an
It's not a
important news,
technical issue,
if
it's
there
a
is an
journalistic
important
issue.
news, one moment,
And the
if
government
there is
has
an
no
important
business
news, the
regulating
news
news.
will
Raghav
find me.
claims he can answer
So
the question.
when she opens their Android phone, a Google News pop-up is there saying this is what is happening right now.
In fact, we should shut down the
that
Ministry of Information
is
and
automated
Broadcasting.
news.
That should be
That
shut down.
is called gaming of news, and Guardian's
Okay.
written on it. If
Raghav
Mike can-
claims he can
if
answer
Mike
the
can
question.
deny
It should
that,
be shut down.
I'll
Raghav
be
claims he can answer the
I will
question.
answer this
Okay, one
So
second.
that's called
No,
gaming
so,
of-
but also
gaming
talk
of
about
news on
talk
now.
about
Michael's
the
question-
fact that
and that is illegal.
we've seen the experience in America, right? Any news that is anti-government, Trump says is fake news. In this case, we saw 13 ministers come out and support that website, that so-called fact-checking website that said this news was fake. It wasn't fake. It was an Indian Express
None of
report
the stories were
based
fake.
on a copy of a government directive. So any news
let me
that
come in now.
criticizes his
Let me
government
come
is
in,
fake news.
So the fact
Or
of the
exposes
matter
the
is that
government
if we were to go through the
government
press
doesn't have
release,
failures. I beg
the
to
press
differ.
release,
All
first
due
of all, I
Talk
would
about
like
the
to point
successes.
out,
Okay, can we-
it is not. It
He
is
was
not-
waiting, can we hear him?
Let me come in. It is first of all not a legislation, so there can be no question of it being colorable or non-colorable legislation. It's not legislation.
It
The
hasn't
second point,
managed
the
to get
second
very far
point
because
is
there
that
was a
the
backlash
sanctions
and the
the
PM
sanctions
stepped
that
in.
were envisaged under the press release, the sanctions were in relation to accreditation, which I repeat is not the
You were not
fundamental
answering
right.
the
Now I'll
question.
come to
You
this
said
question.
you'll
I'll
answer
come
the
to this question
question.
now. The question that he raised was that this government would like to crack down only on news which is against the government, right? And that is why he said that this whole that the system had been envisaged. So the answer to that is very simple. If we actually look at the contents of it, the accreditation, the cancellation of accreditation, and the other sanctions were within the purview of the News Broadcasters Association and the Press Council of India, which is a statutory body, and it is not supposed to be under the control of the government at all. So I don't understand. We have to bring the government into it.
I'm sorry.
The government is nowhere.
You have to self-regulation.
In order to actually get accreditation, it's a very difficult process.
Exactly.
You have to prove A, that you belong to a legitimate organisation. Now, does anyone believe an accredited journalist from a legitimate organisation is going to be involved in knowingly spreading false information
Yes,
for
there are
political
many
ends?
there are many who do
Not
that.
right.
There are many who do that. There was this news about this Dalit man who was beaten up for riding a horse in Gujarat. It was later found to be fake. It was it was contradicted. And news like
Okay,
this.
let me ask Michael that question. Michael, one second. Michael, I want to ask about this question. It happens on both sides. It happens, hold on one second. It happens on both sides. One second. Can Michael just hear the question? It happens on both sides. Nobody is saying it's only on one side. But the fact is abroad, when you see a threat of fake news, it's coming from foreign parties, foreign bodies, right? Russia's intervention in the US elections, for example. But here, a lot of the fake news is by friends of the party in power. So if anybody were to be seriously affected, if this government were to seriously crack down on fake news, who would be the worst affected?
Of the two parties?
Not expected. This is not
in India.
Why is it not affected? I'm sorry. This is an election year. I'm sorry. You tell me. I have a question. Let me answer the question. Michael, in an election year, can I just, in an election year, who stands to gain the most if the press is weak?
It's the opposition who stands to gain the most.
The opposition
BJP is
stands to
already
gain.
winning. Every
Then
win
why
we
do you
win,
want to curb the
21
press?
states right now, every win we win, there is no way we can lose.
Can I just say
because the
answer?
people of India love us. But who stands to lose right now? This is the first time in the independent India's history and a new chapter in international democratic political history. You know, it is the opposition every time BJP.
No, it's not the opposition that brought out this notice. It's your very own government.
That's the beauty
of your very own minister.
We are so
and
honest,
she is someone
and that is
who
why
herself
we
has
want to
been
bring
tweeting
up something
fake
like
news.
this.
She has been found
The
guilty
reason
of
the narrative is being spoken about it here so much is because the opposition is worried. How would they peddle fake news if there is a diktat like that and that gets checked?
Okay, can I still get
That's
Michael to
the
respond? Can Michael just respond since I did ask him? No, he's been quiet. Let him just respond, Sagrika. One second. My question to you is, Michael, whether it is in America or if it is in India, who stands to gain the most if there is a weak press? Is it the party in power? Or is it, as a BJP spokesperson, claiming
Sarah, it is all of them. Every politician. I don't care what party they're in. If they're powerful, they are allergic to accountability. They hate difficult questions.
Yes.
And they want to avoid.
Prime Minister hasn't had one press conference.
This is not a Congress and BJP.
Accountability, he talks. Where is a prime minister or a head of the state in anywhere else in the world who interacts with people, everyone?
One-way interaction.
Who has a live ID, who has an app downloaded by more than
25 Even I want to make one point here.
Okay, I just want to make one point.
Sorry? I'm yearning to get an example for any other head of state or a prime minister who's not as accountable as my prime minister.
I'm sorry, accountable.
Who interacts with the people of India every day.
There was a last press conference
You don't
that he-
have an
No,
example.
no,
my
this was
friend.
the last press
has
conference
not
that he
given
addressed
one press
and took
conference. It has
questions
been
from
one way
the
down.
media. I'm
He
sorry.
doesn't.
No, he doesn't. Now he doesn't need to.
Even Manmohan Singh used to plant questions for his
People,
press
all of us
conference.
are sitting
Arnab
here.
Goswami
He has
has
an
written about
extremely
it.
greased
So it's
team.
not like the Congress
Why
has a
doesn't
great
he need
record
to
in
come
this
out
regard?
and talk?
No, he doesn't need to come and talk to
one
anyone.
second.
He just
Can you just
speak
speak one
from
at a
his
time?
point of view.
Okay,
Make a
Shamika,
journalistic
go
point.
ahead.
I'm just saying that, fake news is a problem, right? As I said, it's a journalistic problem, it's a media problem, and as editorial and as journalists, we need to tackle it. The way to tackle it is not by curtailing or by government heavy-handedness, or but just let me finish. Government, just 1 second. 1 second.
As
You
it's
must finish.
difficult,
Just
let her
1
finish.
second,
Let her
please.
finish her
regulatory mechanisms.
Please,
finish her
can
point.
a journalist
Yes, ma'am.
speak?
Yes, ma'am.
The way to regulate it is not, the mantra of this government is minimum government, maximum governance,
Absolutely.
right? So minimum government means roll back the government, set up a independent body like the Ofcom, which even regulates the BBC. So you need to have an independent body. You need to have bodies that actually care about the future of journalism, like the NBSA and the PCI. Now they have to be strengthened. You have to stimulate more media. The only thing that will combat fake news is not government regulation, is not government heavy-handedness, is not Smriti Irani. It's more news.
Okay,
I have a question to you.
But I want to come back.
Sarah,
one
better
second.
news,
to you.
credible
I
news,
want to come back to
quality
you,
news.
Shagrika, I want to come back
Both
to you
of
about
you
the
are
state
senior
of media
journalists.
today. But first, let's see, many of you are politicians, everybody has a say on this matter. But let's talk about people who are actually affected on the ground by the fact that fake news is spreading so virulently
May I just ask you a
across.
question
No,
directly?
1 second. I want to go across
And
to
it's a
Rahul
journalist
Upadhyay.
question.
He's somebody who's
Let him
actually been
speak.
affected by fake news. He is in the Kaskan violence. He was written off as dead. आपके साथ क्या हुआ था? अब बताइए.
मैम कासगंज में एक अफवाह के चलते मतलब लगातार अफवाह वायरल हो रही थी कि 26 जनवरी को जो दंगे हुए थे उनमें कि राहुल उपाध्याय के पैर में, चंदन गुप्ता के साथ राहुल उपाध्याय के पैर में गोली लगी और राहुल उपाध्याय का ट्रीटमेंट के दौरान अलीगढ़ में मतलब मौत हो गई। उसके बाद में शाम तक ये चलता रहा कि राहुल उपाध्याय की डेड बॉडी अब कासगंज आ रही है, अब अंत्येष्टि होगी, अब यहाँ पहुंची वहां पहुंची, तरह तरह की बातें, ये सब कुछ चलता रहा। लेकिन मुझे चूंकि कासगंज में जब ये दंगे भड़के
आपके नाम पे?
बिल्कुल मेरे नाम पे क्यों, कासगंज में ये तो सिर्फ ये था कि सर प्रभात फेरी निकलती है हमेशा 26 जनवरी को, तिरंगा यात्रा निकल रही थी, उसके दौरान ये सब हुआ होगा। नेट सर्विस वहां बंद कर दी गई थी कासगंज में। नेट सर्विस बंद होने की वजह से सोशल मीडिया से ग्रामीण, चूंकि मैं ग्रामीण क्षेत्र से हूँ, कासगंज से लगभग 15 किलोमीटर दूर एक गांव है, वहां से मैं बिलोंग करता हूं, तो गांव में वो सारी मतलब फैसिलिटीज नहीं थी। नेट सर्विस बंद होने की वजह से सोशल मीडिया से भी टच हट गया था। सिर्फ एक ही चीज थी कि सब लाइट आ रही है या मतलब अपना जो भी है टीवी देखो, जो भी टीवी पे न्यूज आ रही है उनको देख करके अपने आपको मतलब जो भी चीजें आ रही थी सामने उनको देख रहे थे हम लोग। उसके बाद में 27 तारीख को जब नेट सर्विस बंद हुई थी उससे 1 घंटे पहले मुझे ये पता चला कि मेरा फोटो लगा हुआ है, मेरा नाम चल रहा है और उस पर साफ लिखा हुआ है कि शहीद राहुल भाई को नमन, और उसके नीचे एक लाइन और थी कि राहुल भाई जिंदाबाद।
मैं ऑटोग्राफ लूंगा।
No, in hindsight it is amusing, but at that point in time
सही
it could have
बात है।
created more communal tensions in
Absolutely
Kasgan,
नहीं, but ये
which
बहुत
is
सीरियस
already
मैटर
burning.
भी थी ना, बिकॉज इन योर नेम लोग
ये जब
लोगों
मेरे
को
पास
मार
आया
रहे
उसके
थे,
बाद
लोग
में
मर
फिर-
गए
नहीं, वही तो मैं बता रहा हूँ। उसके बाद मेरे पास फोन आना शुरू हुए। सबसे पहले मेरे मित्र का फोन आया सुधांशु का, तो मित्र की वजह से उसने थोड़ा सा मजाकिया तौर पे मुझसे कहा, बोले यार तुम तो मर गए। तो एकदम मैं खुद शॉक्ड हो गया, ये क्या कह रहे हो तुम? बोला कि
नहीं,
इस
तो आप
तरह से
पुलिस के
तुम्हारे
पास
बारे में
गए
ये सब
थे?
चल रहा है। बिल्कुल मैम।
तो वहाँ पे सारी मीडिया थी और आपको सबको लाइक अ
actually में हुआ-
कॉमेडी नाइट
मैं आपको बता
कपल
रहा हूँ।
आपको उनको बताना था कि नहीं मैं जिंदा हूँ,
बिल्कुल
आई एम नॉट अ लाश, आई एम अ लिविंग
मैं वही
पर्सन।
बताने की आपको कोशिश कर रहा हूँ। एक्चुअली में जब मुझे ये पता चला उसके बाद में मैंने ये कोशिश की कि मैं इसका जो भी है चीज मतलब ये जो र्यूमर है इसको खंडित मतलब इसका खंडन करूं, तो सोशल मीडिया के थ्रू ही मैं इसको खंडन करना चाह रहा था, लेकिन सोशल मीडिया के थ्रू मैं नहीं कर पा रहा था क्योंकि नेट सर्विस बंद थी। अगले दिन मैं सोचता रहा कि कासगंज का माहौल इतना ज्यादा धधक रहा था कि वहां पूरा मतलब आवागमन पूरी तरह से बंद था, कोई भी वहां अंदर जा नहीं सकता था शहर में, या जो भी अधिकारी उनसे मुलाकात नहीं हो पा रही थी। तो अगले दिन 27 को मुझे पता चला, 28 को मैं पूरे दिन अपने घर पे रहा शांत, क्योंकि किससे बात की जाए।
So how they were using his name to stoke more communal fire?
नहीं तो
That is
आपकी
what
रिएक्शन
is
क्या है जब आप
serious.
देखते हो यहाँ पे इतनी फेक न्यूज इज बीइंग पेडल्ड, दोनों पार्टी सब पार्टीज।
फेक न्यूज को पहले कंफर्म कीजिए ना कि ऐसा कुछ है या नहीं है। सिर्फ फेक न्यूज आपके सामने कोई
तो फिर मीडिया की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी
justify
मीडिया की
it as a
रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, आपके घर में कोई आया नहीं था, आपके घर में कोई आया नहीं था। Okay, I want to ask Shagrika, Shagrika, hold on, listen in 1 second, please. Can we just, Shagrika, Respond over here. Do we not at some point, does the media not need to do some introspection, right?
Of course.
Because as he points out, no press came to his home to verify
There's
whether
a
he's
sense
allowed.
that-
Hold on.
Absolutely.
Let me hear.
Please
Let
let
me
the
just
journalists
speak
speak
with
also.
her. Little resources are being pumped into news gathering.
Absolutely.
Get it first, but first get it right has been thrown out of the window. We don't even have fact checkers. We have outsourced fact checking to places like Boom Live and Alt News, etc., etc. So, is this a wake up call? How have we allowed
I think
to reach
what
the
needs
position
to
that the
happen-
government feels emboldened that
The
they
government
can step
feels
in?
emboldened because, first of all, journalists have not covered themselves with glory. I think the one profession that is at its lowest credibility today, apart from politicians, is journalists. You know, everywhere I go, people
Because of
hate
stories like
journalists.
Seema.
People hate journalists. So the thing is that journalists are at a low point in their credibility. The media is at a very low point in its credibility. And I think it behoves us as responsible journalists and as senior journalists to look within, to root out those who do not believe in the principles of the free press, who do not believe in the ideas of the fourth estate, and who believe in either kowtowing to the government or running agendas.
But is
Now,
this the watershed
fact
moment? Are we
is-
going to see that?
The
Why have
fact
we
is,
had to wait for
fake
Smriti Irani
news
to step in?
is, and it is a challenge to journalists, you know, but the way to deal with it is more credible, better quality news. And the way to do that is more fact checking, as you said, more verification. Journalists will have to respond to it editorially. Now, I'm 30 years a journalist. My copy, which goes into the newspapers, you know, I write the copy, it goes to the person in charge of the page. That person looks at it. A copy editor looks at it. It finally goes to
But
the
you're in
editor in
print.
chief,
It's the
and
gatekeepers
that's how the news is published.
Your
It's
deadlines are
tracked,
different. Our model
it's
is-
checked, it's verified, and you also the same thing. When you put out a report, the editor here in Delhi would see it and then check it and then put it out, right?
No, but
It doesn't
has the
mean
business model
instantly go on
changed?
air.
Because now we're 24-hour news,
The
you're on
24-hour
Twitter,
news
your
poses
website
a
at
lot
the
of
Times of India has to
challenges,
constantly put out the information. Is
websites,
that the problem?
24/7, that's a very good point. It poses a huge challenge. But you know, I must say again, as you
Michael.
pointed out, Michael pointed out, fake news is not wrong news. When a journalist gets it wrong, a journalist
It was
apologizes
unintentional.
and there's a corrigendum and it's wrong. Fake news is deliberately falsified information, intentionally created to create some kind of
But have we created a
political
space for fake news to emerge because we are doing shoddy journalism? Like in his case, nobody went to his home to check if the guy is dead or
But you know,
alive.
even if the journalists are putting out good journalism, if the journalists are putting out credible journalism, there will always be handles on social media which will perpetuate all kinds of news. So it has to be challenged by journalists. It has to be challenged by more social media, which is why no curtailment. No checks, no curtailment, no regulation. The only way to check it is more media, more debate, open up the space, open up the marketplace, let lots of voices come in, let checking happen online, let checks and counter
So what are
checks
the
happen.
solutions?
So no regulation here, open it up, as well as at the same time journalists have to look inwards and weed out the black sheep within.
No, it's
We
interesting
have
that
to
the
weed out
journalists
the
are
black
looking
sheep
short
within.
inwards, but the government
Let's come
is
back.
refusing
Let's
to
talk
look
about
inwards.
solutions.
Yeah, the
Both
government
of
is
you have
refusing to
floated
look inwards.
arguments.
Responsible.
Let's not talk over each other when we come back,
so
please.
I
Let's
think
just
once
go in for a
the-
short break.
Okay, sorry.
Short break. All right, welcome back. We're talking about fake news. We're trying to find out whether there are any solutions now. Is this government going to continue to crack down on them? Can our panelists please not talk amongst themselves? Can we listen to the audience over here now? Let's go across first to Apar. Apar, maybe you could come in here. Look, politics is a dirty game.
Yeah.
All politicians are now trying to use fake news to their own advantage. So what is the solution?
I think the first thing to recognize is that if there's somebody who's holding power over you, you should demand accountability. And that is usually the government which is in place. Okay? So irrespective the party in power, irrespective the state government, central government, let's all demand greater transparency and for them to support journalists to make fact-based reports. In principle, I think we can agree on that. The second thing is, now in social media what's happening is what is called as an information glut. Censorship happens not only because we are prevented from airing our voices, but there are massive amounts of information which is pushed our way. So we also need to look at how platforms such as Twitter and Facebook design the algorithms, which is also a developing field, what is called as algorithmic accountability. The third thing is, and this is also a good solution and goes back to the principle that the answer to bad speech is more speech, which is a good principle, is for internet shutdowns not to be placed at disproportionately, especially given the present legal regulations which are there. Now the gentleman from Kasanganj, he said that I could not say that I'm alive, and there must have been his friends' family who were anxious, who thought that he was dead. He couldn't get a message out because the internet was shut down. And in fact, India is a global exception with respect to internet shutdowns. We were
No, that's wrong information.
Egypt, Malaysia, Singapore, everyone's done
so
that.
Now we're comparing ourselves with Malaysia and Egypt and Singapore and authoritarian countries in Asia.
They have an equal say
Can I
in the
please
UN.
complete my sentence?
Can
I please complete my sentence and then you can refute it. So there's a Brookings Institute report in 2016 which ranks India as having the highest frequency of internet shutdowns, which caused a loss of more than estimated 5,000 crores, and we are higher in number than Iraq and Libya. And Iraq is stratified as
Let him just finish his argument. When you make your closing argument, you can say what you have to say.
ISIS areas. These are not democratic countries.
Absolutely.
Okay, Michael, is the problem not also that, fake people are just more interested in fake news? Well, I think Jonathan Swift said, falsehood flies, truth comes limping after it, right? I think BuzzFeed had done a study where they said in the last few months in the run-up to the US elections, there was more interest in fake news, and fake news was doing better, selling better than what mainstream media is. So who's to blame? Is it just the public?
I mean, it's not just the media nor politicians. It is partly the appetite of the public, as you say. The invention of social media is something we're living too close to it to be able to really interpret it. It's as monumental as the invention of the printing press. It's something that we'll be grappling with for the next 100 years, understanding its implications. One of those implications has to be educating young people who grow up on the internet to understand that this fire hose of information coming at you 24 hours a day, a lot of it is going to be untrue. Critical thinking is now far more important than it ever was. And so a small part of the solution...
I really want to end the show on this note.
A small part of the solution has to be educating young people how to themselves be skeptical about the information they're getting, how to interrogate it, and arrive at a truth that they can trust.
Can we get solutions now? I think Michael has made a very, very valid point. Would you like to come in? Are we going to see more of this first and foremost from the government? Because clearly, after they step back on fake news, they've tried to create new committees on digital media. So this is clearly not the end.
Why are you thinking they government, not our government? That is the problem which you guys...
I'm sorry, let's not make this a personal issue. This is the government right now who has put this in place. So I will come to you for a closing argument, and do not make it personal. Respond, please. Don't try to divert also. Just respond to the question.
From a journalistic...
Are we going to expect more from this government?
A lot more, and I'll tell you, and I want to question this today. And I want to question this today. If the press and the broadcast media are regulated, 26%, 49%, and so on and so forth, the story goes on. Why aren't any of the so-called digital platforms like The Wire, Scroll, Opin, One India, and so on, all these guys call themselves news, right? There is available news on them. Why aren't they regulated? Why aren't they asked to get a license if they really want to be a news site? And that's one part of it. That's one part of it. But the second part that I would appeal to everyone in this country, including the journalists, and I would quote, in today's digital democracy, we should interrogate the architecture of the cyberspace as we should interrogate the code of Congress.
Okay, that's a good point. Why do sites like The Wire, etc., why should they not be regulated?
You want to be news, be the news.
One second, hold on. Is there not enough regulation already? Don't we have laws like defamation? Wire is constantly every Monday in Ahmedabad. There are
laws like defamation. Having said that,
so they're not completely unregulated.
Having said that, it is very important to make sure that measures are taken before the horse is actually bolted, because there are certain people who are purveyors of fake news, and this fake news, like if somebody puts something about out about Hindu virility and stuff, that can actually lead to communal riot, and it is actionable under section 153. But before the machinery of the law comes into the picture, we have to make sure that there is deterrence.
Okay.
Deterrence as an example is made out of those who are perverse of fake
over
news.
each other, we've lost a lot of time, but I want to go across. I want to give the closing word to Varnika Kundu, who was also a victim. She was affected in many ways by fake news. You fought off these stalkers. You took them to court. They eventually had to be in jail for 15 months?
5 months.
5 months. But you also faced the problem of fake news spreading when your character was questioned.
Of course. It wasn't just one. It started with a picture of me and 2 of my friends who have nothing to do with anything, whose face was plastered all over the country's media. Sorry?
And
yeah, they were 2 boys who, a relative of Vikas Barala's actually posted the picture with the narrative that this is me with him. And
implying that you're a loose girl.
No, he was trying to imply, well, that of course, that was implied with the picture of me with alcohol, which was supposed to be the same night that I was stalked, which was entirely untrue. And what he was implying with this picture of me with 2 of my male friends was that one of them was Vikas Barala. How a relative, a cousin, first cousin of Vikas Barala made that mistake, I have no idea, because they look nothing alike, my friend and Vikas Barala. And I hope it wouldn't, but before anyone says this is not political, let me explain why. We know that the court will not acknowledge anything that's spread on Facebook or social media during the case. So we know that their picture had nothing to do with my case or nothing to do with trying to, you know, save his own brother or whatever.
It couldn't be used in court.
So what was the purpose of that at all?
So what was the impact on your life? Quickly, we're out of time.
The impact was just so many questions. I had, again, every week, you know, I would have the journalists at my place trying to ask me questions about who is this? Is this picture true?
And when this was tweeted, even there was a BJP leader also who tweeted it.
Yeah, there was a BJP leader. There were a lot
China
of
NC. Did she apologize?
She later, much later, months later, did actually spoke to me. But at that point,
she did. So she did speak to you
did.
personally, but she didn't do it on a public fora. And were there other politicians from other parties also who raised this, or no?
Not that I know of.
But it is political. You're clearly saying it's political.
There was also a picture used of me being honored by the Congress Women's Committee or someone, and used to say that I have ties with the Congress.
Correct.
No, it's about
so
building
may have been
perception
political.
also. It's
and
about
that's exactly why
influences
these
the case
content
at
and
many
media
times.
aggregators
Okay,
need
we
to
are
fall
completely
under
out of time. I
regulator.
wanted to give her the
That's
last
the
word.
idea.
Just the fact is, it's affecting people on the ground. This may be political games for our politicians, but it does impact people on the ground. And let's keep that in mind. Thank you so much. We are completely out of time. We'll still be looking for solutions for this. Thank you. Good night.